Aaron Day points out, if you thought NGOs were corrupt, wait until you learn about the Board of Peace. Private army that is used to bomb countries and pave the way for technocracy that the Trump family and Witkoff families personally profit from. And as I said, U.S. State Department transfers $1.25 billion of foreign aid of your money for international disasters and peacekeeping, but transfers it instead to Trump's Board of Peace. Now, what's funny is somebody's going to go, well, we don't want international. Well, guess what? That's happening anyway. So if you pretend that, whether it's your ongoing supporting of the globalist wars that are going on or any other number of things that are still going through USAID or NED, and the same stuff is happening like I've shown 1,000 times. This is just, I argue, the note that you think he's changing from what the Democrats did, when ultimately that's not even in a material sense happening. Like saying, we're ending the COVID shots, and you guys went, yay, and then they didn't do that at all. But they said it out loud. That's nice. So here is this post. Oh, this one was oh yeah, that's right. I'm mixed up on that. So here is the article. This is from Semaphore. State Department sends $1.25 billion in foreign aid to the Board of Peace. I thought that was funny. I thought about that earlier, like just the timing of this, the Board of Peace. You know what I mean? Like while he's literally conducting wars as the supposed peace president. Just kind of a funny point. Like Catherine Austin Fitz has pointed out in the past about the names that are used. Maybe nothing, which coincidence that he's Board of Peace and he's continuing warfare. The State Department has drawn on funds for international disasters and peacekeeping to transfer $1.25 billion of American taxpayer funds to foreign aid to Donald Trump's Board of Peace. That might as well be going in his pocket because he is the forever chairman, which means he could do whatever he wants with this. They're in charge, guys. This is not a government. This is not being voted for. He's just stealing money, as far as I can tell, no matter what he does with it. And it says, and this is coming from a person familiar with the fund. The U.S. has previously pledged to contribute $1.25 billion to the president's new international organization. Why? International organization, by the way, which Trump says will rebuild Gaza. Yeah, the genocide that they're conducting right now and the ethnic cleansing taking place and the illegal actions conducted around all of this while you're illegally bombing Iran and Lebanon and everything else and, ethnically cleansing Syria at the same time. But you want to just take our money to be able to build Gaza? What does that even mean? Another smart city that you guys have outlined for which is exactly the opposite of what anybody supporting you wants? Sure sounds like winning. Of the State Department money, officials pulled $1 billion from international disaster resistance, $200 million from peacekeeping operations, and $50 million from international organizations and programs. The person familiar with the fund said. Trump said he will give $10 billion to the board in total. Oh, good. Meaning 10. If you take that as his money, then I don't think you're paying attention. He sees this as his piggy bank. Clearly, whether you agree with it or not, $1.25 billion from your pocket is enough. More than enough or too much. But 10 billion, guys, it's got to come from it's going to be government funds. I believe that. Now, I'll include these as always. Just Gaza's Board of Peace seeks to reimagine the international order, or how he went to the UN and Davos and produced and announced those totally not globalist programs. And the WHO is proposing for $2 billion of your money, which is, by the way, more than we currently spend on the one he says is paying too much, and the fake globalist resistance that's ushering in the globalist plan and the network state conversation, which I think all of these things come together. If you want to take time to go through those shows, it's worth your time because all of this does amount to what I think is happening. Under the guise of freedom, technocrats are slowly taking control and other dynamics as well. Now, in regard to the partisan side of this, look, everything we're talking about and have been since this administration started is, a lot of it is just this shock of how clear this is the opposite. Again, like the same joke, like running on the idea of stopping the Democrats' COVID-19 actions and then on day one starting a Stargate program. You know what I mean? Like I was blown away by that. I was like, oh my God, this is over. These people are going to riot. And then it just didn't happen. Now, again, I argue even then that was when a moment where a lot of them were like the honest ones. That's just a line too far, especially for the Maha side of it. But some of them still stuck around. And I think moment by moment and lie by lie, that has continued to change. So what I'm going to point out here is with the floundering Iran war, what I believe they're losing. At the very least, just in the long haul, are going to lose with the way that Iran is conducting the war. And I think that they either didn't plan for it the way that they thought it would go, or that Trump was essentially manipulated by outside forces that wanted to use the U.S., like it always does, to batter against the elements they want to fight for their benefit. Or you could talk about everything I just listed off, about the health side of it, about the lies of funding, about more spending and higher government, AI, surveillance, lack of constitutional rights, killing Americans in the streets, a really unprecedented level where we're at. And instead of focusing on any of those things, or even just continuing to highlight the illegal war that we're in, you get a lot of these screaming partisan accounts who are just doing anything to get you to look anywhere else. Here's just a smattering of examples that I think are important to see. Now, this one I thought was, a lot of these are the same kind of thing, where this account says, I'm still trying to process what just happened. The highest ranking U.S. intelligence official just released a smoking gun docs, proving that Obama and his underlings committed treason and sedition, meaning Trump is right about everything. The news is fake and the deep state is real, meaning that all of us as the conspiracy theorists were right about just like this one-stop shop, just everything. Oh, we're all right and we're all winning and everything, it's all coming down. It's just funny. Now, some of them, they are lying. There's fake news. They are lying to us, right? There is an unelected power structure. It's not what I'm saying. But it says, meaning the shadow war is real and all the efforts over the 10 years were part of a LARP. Yeah, it's a little quick lump, 10 years of thought. Just because of this one statement, all of it was there. It's about trying to make you think. Don't listen to all the stuff. Don't forget about Stargate, forget about the glyphosate, forget about the wars, forget about bigger spending, all the lies. It's all going to work out because this. That's what it's supposed to make it feel like, right? And if you don't know, actually, let me play the clip really quickly before I even read what I was going to say. Here's the start of it.
Alert, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false.
That's correct.
They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true.
Yeah, it's a lie. The Russiagate scam was a massive crime.
20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat him.
Okay, it goes, boom, 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 just stuff that, some of which I think is provable. Yeah, Obama's a criminal, guys, war criminal, and he also very clearly lied about this. Okay, yeah, we know this. Now, what's funny about this, you might have already realized, was that's not a bombshell report. That's not a breaking news, I'm still reeling from what I just experienced kind of a post. That's a post from 2025. And I said, you're still trying to process the video that's from 2025? Interesting. Or are you just posting this old video as new to desperately distract waffling MAGA from the reality that Trump lied to them? Since this bombshell led to zero action, I think that's quite clear. And it's funny, some of these people down here are like, you're funny, MAGA, stronger than ever. Just like evidence clearly by this selling of an old failure as a new one, clearly. So my point in these accounts, guys, is these are, some of them are large. I think this one was a smaller one. But my point is this is the kind of ongoing stuff. Some of these I'll show you are like million follower accounts like Wall Street Apes. But the effort here, whether it's about just this person trying to get in on the game, right? To become the next Nick, whatever, Eric Dougherty or whatever, just to become the next person who could just put a red light and holy crap next to whatever Trump says and earn $1 million on this platform, right? Or they're just trying to sell you away from the reality. But either way, my point is, these are people, in my opinion, who are aware of what's going on, right? They're watching because they are Trump supporters. And so you're going to tell me that these people aren't aware? Like, just to make it clear, I've seen people like Wall Street Apes, and many of them literally seen Nick Sorter share this exact video months after it came out, going, a bombshell, it's all coming down. Okay, again, he should be in jail. These people are criminals, Obama. But how long until when nothing is happening until we go, yeah, so they're either they don't care or they lied to us. I mean, what other conclusion can you come to? And then you get them reposting it. Like I keep seeing them share that Kash Patel video saying Pelosi did this and it's all coming down, which is from like the beginning of the administration. And they keep going, oh, I can't believe it, it's coming down, and nothing keeps happening. And I agree, Pelosi should also go to jail. I'm not joking about that. I genuinely think these people are criminals. My point is that they're not doing anything. And that should awaken honest conservatives. and recognizing the accounts that are constantly trying to gaslight you into thinking that these same old videos are now happening and it's all coming down to get you to stop looking at the failures. This person, Real Robert, says, here it is. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth confirms the world's #1 sponsor of terror is Obama. And that's what's a little bit different. This is more relevant to the Iran conversation, but same kind of idea is that, you know what? Okay, so now Hegseth confirms that he's a terrorist. Okay, why wouldn't he be in jail if that's the case? Here's what he said.
Many of the Iranian military factories and bases that we're systematically destroying were paid for by the pallets of American cash.
Don't you love how Trump's just like, this is what he does? Or he has these new sessions where he's basically like, okay, now you say something good about me. Now you say something good about me. Stop talking about that. What about the statue? Which he was kind of joking, but the point is these kind of sessions now are sort of like Trump is so great and he's winning and everything's so great. It's just like, it's North Korea style. It's very embarrassing. So what he's doing is watching him read this. And let's not forget the timing of this. Trump just literally said this in a recent, he said it before too, but he came out and just vomited the idea of Obama and the money and Iran. And they started this because they're floundering. And let's not forget the money was stolen from Iran and they gave it back to him. It's very easy to prove. I've done it many times. And so the story is just, well, Obama made this all happen. And by the way, made what happen? All the things that we can prove aren't real, like nuclear weapons, at least in the case of Iran right now, as your evidence shows. But it's just cycling through the claims. Obama, bad guy. So you hate Democrats. We're the right ones to blindly support. Understand? But then what happens when you don't arrest him? Shut up, Ryan. We support MAGA. That's the kind of thing we're seeing right now.
That Barack Obama flew into Tehran under the Iran deal.
The deal that actually made sure they didn't have nuclear weapons, maintained a 3% enrichment until Trump illegally pulled out of the deal, or unilaterally outside of the deal pulled out of it and legally allowed them to increase it, which they then turned around and called terrorism because they're either dishonest or unaware or, stupid, I guess. But so the money that was part of that deal was them giving back money they seized from Iran. Very simple. And guess what they did with that money? Not what they're claiming.
You might call it an inconvenient truth. Iran took our money and turned it into weapons and bunkers and ammo.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, you mean like every other government in the world, like you guys do every day? Got it.
And now we're destroying those weapons, and you're writing, Mr. President, that grievous wrong.
Just look at the way it's just weird. Like these people are just like groveling at the feet of this person. And just watch the way Trump's responding while I was reading it and he's pointing to him.
Mr. President, that grievous those weapons, and we took our money and turned it into weapons and bunkers and ammo. And now we're destroying those weapons, and you're writing, Mr. President, that grievous wrong.
Yuck.
And make no mistake, we had to act. And our objectives are clear. No nukes, no Navy.
Right. Oh, no Navy? That's interesting. Now, they did actually say that toward the end of these conversations. But, right, in what world can no Navy? This is like a Gaza discussion. So essentially we want you to be a group that sits in the middle of that thing and can't do anything but just acknowledge what we tell you to do. Like, in what world does that even end up being a state? That's the whole point, guys. They want something that is a controllable entity. Why would anybody agree with that? That's not sovereignty. So we should laugh at how stupid that is, whether terrorists or not. It's like, so even if you think they're all terrorists, then acknowledge the deal was never meant to be made because nobody's going to agree to that. So it's war, obviously, right? I mean, that's the whole point. And they're also lying about Iran, in case you missed that.
Complete dismantling of their missile program and defense.
Incorrect. You can prove that today since they're literally still bombing. I'll show you in a second.
Industrial base. And as Marco pointed out, that mission, and the VP as well, has not changed since day one.
Trump seems really bored by this. No, the same kind of point. Okay, so Obama he sent the money, or at least, they're claiming he funded terrorism, or everything else you said. Trump has literally said he's a traitor. He committed treason. He said those words. Those are very real, serious words. Nothing has happened. And guess what? Interestingly, Obama's not sued him for libel or slander either, because that's not obvious, right? Okay, Eric Dougherty. Guess what? Holy crap! Red light. It's not even a joke. It's like clockwork. I'll read that in a second. So he says, DNI, Tulsi Gabbard has learned the U.S. intelligence intercepted Ukraine government plans to route hundreds of millions of American tax dollars to boost Biden's 2024 campaign against Trump. It's a hamster wheel for these people. The same old stories recycled over and over. Now, even if it's real, my point is nothing will happen. But it's Biden and Democrats and Obama and in 2020, and it's like the same recycling elements just over and over, and then nothing happens. Gabbard is now asking the U.S. agency, the USAID, to determine if the plot was carried out. Oh, you mean the agency that you guys told us was shut down? Funny how that works out. I just think this is ridiculous how every day it gets more and more stupid. I mean, we know it wasn't because we're not dumb, and we showed you that it was literally absorbed by the State Department. Even Marco Rubio made it clear that it would carry on in certain ways, and yet people like Eric and the rest and Nick were like, yay, no more USAID, it's been shut down forever. Either they were dumb or they were lying. And here we are. Now they're asking the group that doesn't exist anymore whether or not that's what happened. The U.S. tax dollars were earmarked for Ukraine to use for clean energy. Gabbard's team even found that the communications intercepted under Biden were not even thoroughly investigated. Imagine that. Investigate and expose it all. Okay. Well, guess what? Now watch as absolutely nothing happens at all. And Eric will nonetheless carry on cheerleading for the people, allowing criminals like Biden to not be held accountable. My prediction. But, you can look into the story for yourself. What I find interesting is the story itself is, so Just the News is the platform, and they're the only one anywhere reporting the story, or at least having the source material, that they claim they got access to an unredacted report proving that. But they don't cite the report. They don't link to the report. Nobody else has access to the report. And only other reporting is coming from, they're pointing to this report and saying that's what they're claiming. So it just seems a little bit odd to me. So what's happening here? Is the Trump administration just dumping this unredacted, unclassified, or declassified report? Because it was, and they declassified it, they're claiming, and just gave it to them. And then why wouldn't they show anybody? Why wouldn't you prove that? It's not classified. I'm calling their bluff. I think this seems a little bit shifty to me, but I don't know. I've seen stuff from Just the News that I thought was good. So overall, you should question it, like anybody should, me or anybody, if we're giving you something without source material. I just think that's fascinating to me. Now, it also could be that the Trump administration or somebody else dumped one thing to their hands that they calculated or manipulated and said, don't show anybody else. Otherwise, we won't give you something in the future. And that's called access journalism. But I think at the end of the day, the real point is, even if it is real, which wouldn't surprise me because Biden's a criminal, nothing will happen. And I don't know why we can't see that by now with Biden having 1,000 things they could charge him with, and they're not. Here's what the SCIF said. This is a 300,000 follower account. Obviously, you can see, MAGA supporter. It says they were never sending aid every other day to Ukraine. They were laundering your tax dollars right back to their own pockets and campaigns to rig elections, most likely. And Trump posted it. Look at that. U.S. intercepted Ukraine government messages. Okay, so as the president, I'm sure he must know about that. And so that means he's probably involved with giving him that. I don't know how else you could see that. Also, he's posting it, which means he's aware of it. So I guess we should imagine Biden will be arrested by the end of the day, right? Probably not. Wall Street Apes. Uncovered audio shows Anthony Fauci. By the way, it's audio from a congressional hearing, so pretty sure it's public, but whatever. And it says, Anthony Fauci talked about having every major corporation require vaccinations and making it as hard as possible on citizens so they're forced to be vaccinated. Yeah, man, that's disgusting. He should be in jail, right? Well, guess what won't happen? And Senator Rand Paul says, I referred him to DOJ for prosecution 3 times, by the way, and guess what? Didn't happen. Going to jail. He didn't get charged. Nothing happened. I mean, it's the same story, guys. I don't know why this is not registering for, well, again, I shouldn't keep saying it like that with where we are. I know why it's not registering for people like this, because they're clearly not in this for the truth. At the end of the day, you either recognize that they've never even tried to go after these people, which has to tell you what's going on, or you just keep hyping people. How long can you hype non-action? How long can you hype these stories with nothing going on? Yeah, I can't. This is one I always have to bring up. Same kind of point. Where Jones said in 2025 that we have big things coming down. All the things coming. Oh, by the way, on that note, there's now new action against, I believe, Letitia James and maybe Comey, but I have the same stance. Just like I was showing that it turned out to be nothing because they had no evidence and they made up, and that doesn't mean they're not criminals. I believe they're very clearly criminals. But they dismissed them because there was nothing there, like the original lawyer told them. And so now they're coming back at it. And hey, I hope they go to jail. If they do, I'll be happy to say I was incorrect. I do not believe it'll happen. And so this was what he was saying about those, saying these people, insiders told me they've got things coming down, and it went nowhere. And again, down here, Decentralized News shows how in 2024, he was saying, if we can just keep President Trump alive, then we'll get Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, and Fauci and Hillary going to jail, except now Bill Gates is basically part of the administration. So is Larry Fink, and all the rest of them haven't gone to jail. But maybe tomorrow. We'll see. But if you're objective about this, you would recognize by now that it's unlikely based on previous action. Here's another one. The QI says, boom! Here are the Pfizer documents with side effects they wanted sealed for 75 years. And I said, boom! Here are 4-year-old documents. That's what's going on. I don't understand. And it's just dump after dump after dump of people trying to shove things in your face that are not new and have been seen roundly, but it's about trying to create the idea that it's somehow new to, I think, distract people from what's happening. Here's Eric Dowdy saying, just in, House Doge chairman, apparently it's now Doge again, even though they didn't use that term when they announced it. The same Doge that failed, or Elon Musk, they spent more, government grew, they lied about what they did. They basically sold you out to an AI data system and Israel got access to it. Yeah, all that. Remember that? It's not a joke. It's very easy to prove. And I covered it from the very beginning. Like I said before, had we been paying attention and listened to the independent media and the IMA, for example, and said, and recognized what it was going, we could have stopped it. We probably could have done something to push back and maybe even slowed it down, but not now. That's over. That ship has sailed. Like glyphosate, guys, that ship has sailed and they have access to everything. They've unsiloed the information and this is happening. And now is when we can step up and call out the new problems and maybe stop that from happening. But unless the Joneses and Johnsons of the world shout you all away from seeing it, or the Doughertys. But he says, Tim Burchett is launching his first Doge hearing to immediately begin destroying billions of dollars. Oh, is that what's going to happen? Immediately destroying billions of waste and fraud. Well, that's what you claimed happened last time, Eric. Didn't you guys all go, oh, Elon Musk is doing everything and he's breaking it all down, and you were wrong and you lied and the same thing, and Doge got caught lying about all of it. Burchett is a national treasure, he says, probably over $1 trillion in duplication. Okay, great. I don't agree. I don't disagree. I think you're all defrauding us all the time, including Musk and probably you. And the bottom line is, I would agree that there's fraud. Do you agree that something will change? I don't believe it will. I hope it does. But on that note, as Clarence Thomas, the tank engine, writes, well, and in case you didn't notice this, the national debt has now hit $40 trillion over it, and it goes up every second. And he wrote, Doge didn't fail. It was never meant to reduce debt. It was meant to siphon your personal data to Elon Musk and his friends, private businesses, and gut agencies that don't like or that try to hold them accountable. It was a stunning success, actually. Now, I might slightly frame it differently in some of those points, but largely I agree. And that's why I agree it was a success. Exactly what they were trying to do. And there's the point from before. 100% agree with that. But it's also important to remember those of us, not just me, plenty of us out there, who were trying to warn you all about this, about the deception as it was actually happening, and when we actually could have stopped it. That's important. Same thing now. Here's just one example from 2025, the Doge deep state, or the deep Doge state, excuse me. And just talking about this exact problem. And well before that, right when it started, we were critical of the lies that were already happening. Wall Street apes. The money flown out of Minneapolis airport and by fraudsters has been tracked and used to purchase stuff in Kenya, apartments, luxury homes. Yes. This is interesting to me. Seeing how this is the same conversation. That's what this is. This is the same conversation. This pertains to largely between 2020 and 2022 for the most part. That's the reality. Now, I don't see very many people getting held accountable for that. Now, right now is my point. Now, during Biden's administration, and this is not a pro-Biden point, I think they're just as corrupt, but for whatever reason, during Biden's administration, people were indicted and even arrested and charged for this. Funny how that's not being talked about, as they frame it as if nothing. Oh my God, look at all the stuff the Democrats did. Well, yeah, realistically, you could argue that's connection, but Biden's administration put some of them in jail. Probably not the people in charge, because I think they're all scapegoats. Probably. My point, though, is pointing at this now is only to continue to keep this basically incorrect framing of what you claim is happening in Minneapolis and Minnesota based on some Nick Shirley spinoff into some idea that what has Trump done about it? That's the real point I'm making with all these things. Who has been arrested, Wall Street apes? If you're claiming this is all so provable and they're presenting the evidence, which I agree the real story is, and it goes to left and right of the conversation, and it includes immigrants and people in this country, why has nobody been arrested for that? You'd think that would be the primary point, wouldn't it? Unless the game is to manipulate people. There's another one. I thought somebody down here, it might be the next one. Oh, it's this one here. So here, same conversation. And this new clip is going around. Minnesota Rep. Christy Knudsen says that they just found the state, quote, turned off tracking for money being sent overseas. Now, this is not even a new story, but the hyperbolic element is what she adds to it. And it says they turned it on for 2 weeks, saw all the money leaving, and Democrats quickly shut off the tracking to allow it to keep happening. It's a very partisan, misleading framing about that. Our government was absolutely involved with this. And it says, I can just play it, but as the point again, same conversation. This is not even necessarily new. And as Forrest Smiley rightly points out, and nothing will change. See, anybody who's actually paying attention will be already aware of the fact that, yes, we probably all, especially nonpartisan, not about left and right. I want the criminals to be held accountable. These people clearly don't. I believe I've got the, oh no, I didn't actually grab the clip. You can watch. You play it off. It basically just reads what she says right here. And it says, today in the fraud committee, the Department of Human Services testified that they haven't been tracking the IP addresses of money that's being literally flown out of our state and where it's going. They did turn it on, that reporting, for 2 weeks, and they found out, yes, a lot of those IP addresses were tied to overseas computers. And then they quickly shut it off. Now, the story is essentially what she just wrote there. The rest of the framing about some kind of look, you know my opinion. I think these people in government are willfully corrupt. But that's not the same as saying I will assume every single chance I get that that's exactly what's happening. Because that's not caring about the truth. So what I think is happening here is a framing of this to throw it at one side of the paradigm, which really does involve the government, and about something, by the way, that has already largely been addressed and is still happening. Doesn't that seem to show you? I mean, didn't Massey already show you guys that Trump's bill, or rather the Republican-led bill, allowed funding to continue to the very thing that they all said Nick Shirley exposed, the very thing that you guys were criticizing. And then right after that hype, they allowed the funding. Massey voted against it. And yet these people still act like the Democrats are, well, then the Republicans too then, right? Since they allowed the funding. It's logic. It's honesty. Oh, and this is funny. I forgot about this. This is really interesting to me. So this is Grok asking about if it's accurate. And I always like to see whether and for actually reasons just like this. And of course, never are we just blindly taking Grok's view. In fact, it's always the opposite. It's always about finding something other than Grok and just, like all source material, comparing them for our own opinion. But the point here is I asked it, is this accurate about what she said? Just simple, is it accurate? And it said, no, the claim in that post is not accurate. It misrepresents how tariffs work and what the economic data shows so far under Trump's administration. What? I said, okay, maybe I'm missing some. Maybe I didn't watch the video all the way through. And it goes, oh, what gets wrong? The idea that tariffs are deflationary. Oh, okay. So what you're seeing here is a ridiculous answer that has nothing to do with the actual post. Now, of course, that could be a glitch, right? It could be some kind of it had a little problem and it glitched out. Or it could be what I think it is and what I'm about to show you it is, like we saw, like I often point out, during the South African genocide conversation, which was Elon got caught because Grok exposed him for deliberately manipulating it to answer a certain way. That's been shown more times, many times in just the last so many years, like since this administration. And what happened, as I've said before, and look it up, it was widely covered. Many platforms covered it. Like mainstream, is somebody was saying, what's the weather today? And it was like, there's a genocide in South Africa. So, and that's when people were like, what? That's ridiculous. And so now, same point. And I've seen this many times over the last couple of days. So I was curious to see what happened. So I just started a new page, asked again. And I asked, is it accurate? And it says, no, it's not accurate. It says, this is interesting. It kind of conflates the two. It says it appears to be a mismatch or repost error. The content in that Twitter post, and this is what I find most interesting. So remember, all these posts have like a specific identifier number in the URL. That ID from Wall Street Apes is actually about Minnesota state fraud being sent overseas. It says the poster, but about overseas, not about Trump tariffs. Okay, which I didn't even ask. The poster or someone likely intended a different post or graphic claiming something like Trump just announced 25% tariffs on Canada, Mexico. What? That specific claim is broadly accurate. Okay. So clearly, in my opinion, which I'm going to get to more in a second, someone on the platform is trying to direct the AI to make a certain answer with certain topics, and it causes it to freak out. That's what I think is happening. And it goes on to make all these points about tariffs. And I simply come out and I say, why are you even talking about tariffs? And it goes, I apologize for the mix up in my previous response. And what I want people to understand, I made a point about this the other day. This program has been allowed to assume, to infer, which is counterintuitive to what it's actually claiming to do. Now, look, I understand in a conversational app, which is what they want it to be. It's not the same as a data, like a fact-based report. They want it to be able to engage. Not everybody's in this for just data, right? They want some AI to talk to, whatever. So to do that, it has to be something that can have some conversational elements, which it claims to some degree have that, which I do understand. The difference, though, is what you're going to see here, and what I've just recently seen the other day is you ask it a question, and you clearly can see that it assumes what you meant to say. And I go, well, that's not why did you assume that? And he goes, well, because this is what everyone's talking about. It literally says that. I said, well, why are you even assuming or inferring? And it says, because that's necessary for conversation. And I'm like, okay, even if it was innocent, if you will, that is clearly showing you that it is about, it can be slanted based on talking points, based on who's back there pulling the strings. And this is an example of that, I think. Continuing, it says, you shared this specific X post, which I did, and I incorrectly assumed or conflated it with a different viral graphic claim. See? Now, how is that even possible with something Elon says is all about truth? It's about getting the right answers. Well, why then would you let it assume based on something that's manipulative, and you damn well know it. And this is what the post actually says and goes on. Okay, what the core claim is the core claim accurate? And it says Minnesota has faced repeated high-profile fraud scandals. Yeah, exactly. That's what it's talking about. The same scandals we've talked about. And it says the post adds interpretive spin, which we know. I already said that. And that's the reality, since she's basically turning it into her framing of what she thinks it is, as opposed to just the government being caught in some level of fraud or somebody using the system for that. And I asked it, and then this is what's interesting. When it responded, it says, in regard to the accurate clip, I said, is it accurate? And it says the video clip is quoted testimony appears genuine. Now, that may not mean much to you if you're not messing with this thing. The end of the point, though, is that what it tends to, the genuine term can simply mean, well, yes, the video exists, so it is genuine. Not necessarily that it's an accurate claim or that the video is real. It could be AI, but it's genuine. It exists, right? And so that's what I said. I asked if it was accurate, not genuine. And again, it says, you're right. I answered whether the video clip was genuine. And it says, but your original question was whether it was overall claim is accurate. And it goes on to make all these different points. I mean, I think it's really important to understand what it's doing. Now, many of you maybe don't even engage with it, and maybe you probably shouldn't. Even I question whether sometimes this is even worth the engagement, or whether I'm doing it. But it's like we say every time. It's about making these individual choices on what we think is going to be. It's like using a cell phone or driving or going to Starbucks. If you rationalize these things, now this is way worse, I argue, in the sense of using it every day. In fact, we're going to have an IMA thing coming up soon. I think we're going to be talking about the lines that are being drawn with all of this. And I think it's very important, because there's some of us in the, I forget which one was talking about that made the argument in the last show about whether this could be used for research. And my opinion is that it's dangerous, because it very clearly can then, one, stop you from doing the effort yourself, and also end up sort of guiding you in channels that aren't even accurate. So my avenue tends to be sort of calling out the partisan view. And I'm trying to make that's where I think I'm going to leave it ultimately, because I think it's dangerous to fall in the trap. But my point in saying all this is that for people that are engaging with this, like for writing stuff, which God save us, that's actually exploding right now. It's important to understand that it's being given the ability to sort of be subjective, and that's not how it's being framed. And I think that's super dangerous. Now, bottom line, it says, however, the post casual claim, shut it off or to allow the fraud to continue, goes beyond what established in the testimony. So she's just playing it fast and loose with the truth, because that's what partisans do. Now, back to this. Here's what Jesse Waters posted on March 24th. I honestly can't believe this is still happening, because you remember, in case you didn't follow it, the whole Nick Shirley story was basically glommed on to the actual story of fraud in Minnesota that people were actually arrested for in 2022 and before. And he went door to door to some random, which very well may have been involved in fraud, but I never saw anything definitive other than who going to random doors and them just shoving them out the door and acting like that proved they were criminals. It was kind of disgusting at the end of the day how he's harassing random children. And guess what? He goes to California now. Here's Jesse Waters. Here, look, apparently Shirley's in California going door to door at daycares with quotes. Okay, based on what? Because it's a Democrat state? I don't understand why anybody gives these people the kind of, the credence. Is this not ridiculous? Of course, it could be fraud. Anything could be fraud. But what logic are we going on? You're walking up to daycares in California, and it says 14 kids enrolled, 7 enrolled, but not a single toddler found. I mean, I don't know. I can't. I like to believe that the majority of people, probably outside of Twitter, are just not this stupid, are not this willfully dishonest, or willing to just allow people like this to act like there's credence to what they're doing, legitimacy to what they're doing. Doors are being slammed because they're screaming, F you again. Yeah, because you're a random guy with a camera walking up asking about children at a daycare. That's disgusting. This is a creep. This gets worse. 89 hospices in one building, 400 violations. Okay, maybe they're criminals. I mean, what the game of this making it about somehow daycare related in only California is because Nick Shirley's recognized a shtick. He's realized when he yells about this, people go crazy. And people like Jesse Waters put him right on Fox News. And guess what? He gets a lot of money. And guess what the point is if you're following along? So you're telling me there's all this fraud and no one's been arrested. Walk me through that, Jesse Waters. Walk me through how this is an important bombshell and yet nobody ever goes to jail. See, that's the only real point I'm making. I'm never trying to suggest that there's not fraud because I don't know. My point is neither does Nick Shirley. But overall, I'm not convinced left, right, up, down. People of government especially, partisans especially, are riddled with fraud. But who was arrested last time Nick Shirley exposed all that fraud? He didn't. But when's the last time? As I told you, there were a bunch of people arrested in Biden's administration, but last I checked, Trump hasn't arrested a single person for all of that hype about what happened in Minnesota. And we can't be honest about how stupid all this is. Okay.